Hi, Kempo. Were you wanting to do an introduction or anything?
Oh.
Should we just start with Rinpoche? I think that's what we did last time.
Everybody Santa Kutubode Kosokdeo, Tabel Tajakala, you begin the Samanatini, Tashi direction.
how you're all doing. Tashidele to all the Sangha around the world, and thank you for joining us on the live stream.
강르들이 다다 주토 가사 가니든 나와사지비 치료 참하게 라마는데 왕하고 건난 그 요래 드리텔 같이 시해준 잠을 요래 같이 왕 찍을 쇼고 말이 전인 그 말이 대냠이 맞지를 니와치 보여래도 시에서 요래 됐다는 그 말이 같이 왕 같이 톱나 쇼고 그래서 그래 내가 동라지 요래 왕신이 그 말이 속에 왕뜻 봐도 접는 그 말이 속에 강드 그 말이 되나 라직다 냠니시라 오 라직을 상거리 라탐지 자알 탐지 시롱도 적대 상거리래 들이 제 말이 되다 랭담을 가다 나만사 속에더니 좀상나 만나서 예담 나만나서 요래 내가 왕시 봤던 문이더니 강내 왕 같이 톱나 쇼고를
And today we are receiving the Vajrapani Empowerment, and there might be a few newer Dharma friends here, and there's one important thing that you should understand, and that is nowadays many lamas confer many different empowerments in various centers around the world. And regarding the receiving of an empowerment, there are basically two different ways of viewing that. Now, some people say that it's better not to receive too many empowerments, because if you receive an empowerment and then you don't practice it well, then that's a great fault. So that's actually not true at all. So then the other view is that it's the more empowerments you receive, the better it is. And there's actually something meaningful to that. So we can see which one we should pick, the first one or the second one. So because if you practice a single deity, it's okay to practice a single deity. However, it is important to understand that when you practice just a single deity, all the empowerments, all the deities from whom you have received empowerments are actually complete. So it's therefore sufficient to practice a single deity and still receive empowerments. Because it is said within the expanse of primordial wisdom, all the Buddhas are one. And so for this reason, we really shouldn't say at all that you shouldn't receive empowerment because that's a great fault if you can't practice it. So there's all kinds of different empowerments, and there's different lineages, different Yidam deities, and various different individuals, different kinds of practitioners and gurus and so on. But whichever one it is, what is the actual meaning of the empowerment? That is what needs to be understood. And if you really understand the meaning of empowerment, then you see that actually the more empowerments you receive, the better it is.
The show group of Johnson Kare, the one men Kare. Lama Soko Wang Nama, Mizi Wang Song, Wang Song. Mizi the Kare me Gore. Me the Kare me the Metog Song me, telling no children, Meto Kake, Meto Japam with some Gore. Be 메토 성도도 가요래 되는 무슨 셉진 탐지게 줄 셈진은 사진이 이제 사진 찾았어 볼까는 넌 셈데 우리 사진이 졌어요 그래서 답을 못 사진은 소 저는 대식님 보시 봤대 맹 약고다 샤르메 이 동물맹데 대식 가래지 셈 코한 거 내려고들이 아시지 하고서 대어식 받을 사지고 막 터야요 그래. 세부 내로 막도는 코와 차는 그래. 세부 내lok도 도서로 상지 찾기요 그래. 내lok도 막도 제발. 대 내lok도 뭐 체라들 민지요 왕전에 몇도 그 사원 민들이 습기 사지에서 민지요 그래. 이 세와 요말 남바 요말 좀 다치바 요말 도난 도를 쭉 참말 사제가 뭐 셈이 요래 셈이 요네 감 쪽디인지 물을 못 진디 이거가 고가리 요래 맞아 수능 첨부 오지 이 물을 못 지키 봐야지 상하도 지고 모르는 들이 민지 왕가 고가비 요래 로가를 누긴다라지 고가비 요말 별로 때렸다 당 왕지선 하대 그래서 그래서 톱톱 그러지 무슨 남들이 왕을 도나 톱톱 요말 그래서 때 물을 못지 쭉벌들이 고가를 되는 왕쇼 눈치 가려들 민지 가려 민걸 샘데 산지를 민거를 그래서 마음이 샘 가려야 돼 작업을 해야지 민버샘 가려야 돼 잡소를 해야지 오 산지 습지 이거라 저런데 잡소니 제발 요래 어때때 저런데 맞으려 줄이 능해도 왜 저런 맞으려 능해 요래지 오 습지인들 가면 능해 요래지 오 민소는 대화도 잡지처럼 왕 요래 랑라 왕 요래 이런 핑크 요래 나고 잡아 쟁을 나서 같은 저건 핑크 요래 뒤따오도 보는데 왕 같이 통이 쇼거래 대신도 뭐 요리들이 왕그 서무대 요래 그리 왕 레이션의 서무대 첫세자 첫대에서 약그 요래 빼지다 그러지 근데 왕그 서무 사람 나오는 때 쳤다 왔는지 착그 요래 대외 왕쇼고 그랬지
So what's the reason that we have to receive an empowerment? The empowerment is called the ripening empowerment. No matter who confers the empowerment, the purpose of any empowerment is to mature or to ripen the mind. And that's the real meaning of empowerment, the real purpose of receiving an empowerment. So what is to be ripened or matured? For example, it's just like the seed of a flower sprouting and then growing into a flower. And then once it is a flower, from a single flower, many hundreds of more seeds then emerge. So the seed, like the seed of a flower during an empowerment, what is that seed actually? Actually, all sentient beings possess that seed. The Buddha Shakyamuni had said that all sentient beings are actually Buddhas. So that is the potential, the cause for Buddhahood. Gampopa said in the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, the cause is Buddha nature. So it is given this excellent name, Buddha nature or Tathagata Garbha, which means the essence of those gone, the dust gone ones. And so what does that mean to go to go beyond, basically? It is that when you recognize the true nature of the mind, then you can go beyond, which means you can attain the state of awakening. And if you do not realize the nature of the mind, then you are in samsara. So if you realize it, you are a Buddha, and not realizing it, you are in samsara. So that's the difference. And in order to realize the nature of the mind, we receive the ripening empowerment, which is just like a ripening the seed of a flower into a flower. So we learn during the empowerment that sentient beings can ripen into Buddhas. And that's the only difference between Buddhas and sentient beings. It's just the temporary appearance, but then not temporarily we speak about Buddhists and non-Buddhists and so on, but really, or different lineages and so on, but actually all sentient beings of the 6 realms of samsara possess Buddha nature. They have the same nature, and yet it is only the precious human body that is endowed with 6 elements or constituents that has the karmic fortune, the great merit to accomplish enlightenment. It is only the precious human body that has the opportunity to receive a ripening empowerment and then practice the Vajrayana. any sentient being in the other 6 realms do not have those opportunities. And of course, they can still receive the blessings of an empowerment, for example, and some benefit, but they are not actually able to engage in practice. They cannot really accomplish the real purpose of the empowerment. So it's really only the precious human body, a precious human being, that has the karmic fortune to do so. And so, again, what's the reason we receive an empowerment? It is so that we can mature. And what needs to mature? The mind needs to mature into a Buddha. So what is the immature mind? The immature mind is like an ice block. And the mature mind is like an ocean water. And that's the difference between Buddhas and sentient beings, like the difference between ice and water. So you need to melt the ice block. So for as long as you don't melt your own ice block, you suffer, don't you? And so in that moment of being a sentient being, that existence is bound to suffering. And when you mature, then you experience great bliss, and the bliss comes from your freedom, like ocean water. Ocean water is free. And also you attain the ability to benefit others. For example, just like rain falling from the sky and so on, just naturally permeating beings with benefit. And so for this reason, in brief, the more empowerments you receive, the better it is. Because all beings possess Buddha nature, and during the empowerment, it is like we are bringing this seed to its full potential. We are ripening it. And therefore, every time you receive an empowerment, it's like you're adding a little bit of water to the seed that you have already planted. So first you plant your seed, and whenever you receive a ripening empowerment, you're adding some water to that seed. And so for this reason, it's important to receive empowerment.
오늘은 생부 작업람들 가르쳐서지 생부 작업람들이 생부 내놓고내한테 마도네 들이 다지이지 얘들이 자동 모종 딱만 우보든 심만을 시니 들이 다 우세들이 느끼기가 잡들이 될 마탑들이 제가 나치 동에 생기 소소로 와도 소시 동에 뛰는 들이 말게 가나치 동에 따뜻한 답을 통이지 말이 니도 동에 치본데 와디 강리 송수로 다리 송우지 다 지가 단디지 다메 빨아 다도 송하데 다도 용은 지 좋고 요래 산지게 내려오지 주다 용은 지미 좋대 하고요 말이 다메 빨아 다도 송고 요래 생긴 담지가 출발해 산지게 상들이 거기 다메 맞아 다메가 하고 그래 다미도 시합에 산지 시합에 다메가 송고 하고 요래 따뜻한 것이 때문에 생도 다리지나 생도 다리지나 생도 가도 생도 내려도 어디는 다음에가 좋다 하고 그래 요밤마이 매밤마이 따뜻한 탑절했더니 롱다르 베이지를 원미다와 리타다냐 민설 하고 지바로 사소 석진 독신 때라서 왔더니 또다 생도 내려도 또는 그때 상제지 언제 바데 상을 생각하는 건 아직도 남았다 그래 이 데라들이 축구를 놓고 축구 거스는 거 이해하시는 셈들이 세무용들이 거스 사유 거스는 거 아니야 이게 차요래 대목도 나로 와가 가면 데라 들이 다다 마다 번거서 르마 이성거 박차 용하더니 르거왕 마르송거왕 세나 톡적왕지 그 왕섬 왕도르디 바스 왕섬도 참고요 대배 제나스네 왕 나 도망을 왕마가 왕망 보여래 이런 다 톡들이 딱 속도로 왕한테 그요래 디더니 톡 왕시 받더니 다딩이 처럼라고 되셨구나 이 다딩 광처럼라고 했나 때 가리기 시작하거든 왕들은 언제서 뭘 같이 왕 톱나 되니 왕다 왕소 담책에서 뭐 담책소 뭐 톱나 이런 왕시 이거 말했지 담책가리 담책이 와서 왕 담책은 탁탁 받더니 톡적왕을 해 톡적왕 탁탁 받더니 당 상속세래지. 상제나 다지 디가 로드 파 상고나 인핑을 로드 조다래지. 다디의 차그런 따르지. 대를 인핑을 로 상속세지 왕이 담도 세지면 왕적 영역 말이 토마니 왕가 쪽으로들이 토마 상속셈. 정탈 왕가 담쳐라 상속셈. 상속셈도 다 삼제 삼바된 일이지. 오, 뒤에들이 셈 삼제 지고 그러니 새들 후루 차용을 그 도배도 씨아지고 도지 동나오나 셈 후루 차지고 차마도 와. 다들 셈이 장로 때서 쇼요래. 필수 삼제를 대발라들이. 야, 막 주바지 뭐지 냠들었나? 그래 고소라는 거래. 그래 네가 나한테 채는 차공차공으로 손들이 다 죽어요 거래. 때렸더니 그래 해당 차도 올라서 왔다 용바 독재네들이 다 되게 다 호라 독이었대. 사준처럼 다 차로 대회라 왕소 당책지 받을 거래지. 왕자를 잡아 당책 쭉 맞도요 말이지. 왕자시는 돼. 다 당책이 그래. 사족선 나반이래죠. 그것도 상족선, 오, 세미바. 삼바 세미바다, 니에 세미. 삼바 세미바래지. 삼바 세미바는 이게 세미바인 거예요. 와그 통화는, 이 상족선 집에 탑대, 짬조지. 산지에 그때 하고, 그때 짬조지. 산지에, 어쩌서를 따서 줘고, 산지에 람취도 있는데, 주스 삼hinge고, 엄지. 어떻게 다들이 산지에 주, 레디지. 산지 샬마 중에 산지 고성톡 견디를 찬 거예요. 그 견디 송탐지톡 산지 견디 바탕지 찬 거예요. 고조선 찬 거예요. 대회들이 땀도 그지서 다 왕문에 사족설을 대회 뒤삼세대 주왕 마주나 주 삼세미나 주 삼세라서나 주 인증 밑에 유무가 톡을 랑속대 고런 찬 거예요. 왕 마주나 주시 이게 왕수요면 제당 차도 가대지는 저게 요래. 저것도 왜 띵이 성수는 너도 올라다 저기 오래면서 왕순이 산족선 삼바는 게 답고 잡네. 때렸더니 셈으로 차려내. 당진처럼 그러고 셈이 다 산족선 별로 쳐서 잡았다. 저럼 잡소를 탐대. 대따로 털려들 왕쇼고 저 동세 심지 당시에 대식이고 요래지. 어나 왕쇼도 담색선 거 시바 다소 싸봤다들이 삼바던 인계래지. 삼바던 게 줄었지라. 그리 나디 매반도네. 삼바체면 인제 체면 나디 매반들 대신 저런 것도 쉬어고 요래지. 그랬더니 약지쳐서 예배 받자고 요래. 대 차마 차가 바로 동해를 타고 요 말이. 내가 동해를 차를 탑 내왔던 데에 탑들이 소강 나서면 안 되는 거 산재가 소문에. 당호 왕쇼고 봐. 왕같이 있으나 이 마치 왕수사리 왕리 그래서 하나 담색 냠나 왕그 수요래 소탈 것들이 소종리 막 소종들이 왕수가 왕을 왕인지 조고래 일시 사만이 왕인지 대 강리들이 소들이 차롱차롱들이 야 조그는 요래야 조 탑들이 전대 차롱만 잡아 탑 양땅한테 담색 소들이 왕가 담책대 적 하고 다 왕가 담책 상태지. 이 왕순아 마준이 주 상태라서는 종이 손으로 저래지. 왕순이 담책 마송으로더니 리바테스 체르데 그냥지 다다 왕순이 시제도 체드세 바티지 바를 마도 저게 왕마준아 유모번이 바치 바래 유모번이 로아르도 대랑이 차대래 저번에 뒤수고 그선에 좀 되게 직선만 한 속이지. 저시 당같이 냐와랑 속. 저 세나한테 다 그런 속. 내가도 로가도 멍쪽을 한 속. 무슨 다 차려래지. 대다로 지는 데 있어. 나도 왕 쇼고 봤다. 왕가 탐색도 삼대인 봐. 맨지 저때 대신은 뭐 소소로 봐 하고는 대다 왕 쇼고 봤대. 맞더라고 왕이제네. 이 짜고 탐색도 삼세인 봐. 대에서부터 하고서는 이 태동적적 요 말이 대 하자 기침보래. 그때 좀다 가니나 라마 석에나 왕시 받으려고 나쪽과 차대요. 돈들이 소들이 도대 하도 소 삼대 도대 하도 소 나중에 차로 종대 나중에 차로인데 파티 종고요. 이 도서 종 하고 왕 대지 동쪽과를 대 주로 넘버 3이 니엘생게 일인지도 기초 모요리 대 왕동다 디바스.
So how has the mind become like an ice block? How is it frozen? It's because we haven't realized the true nature of the mind. And if you don't realize the true nature of your mind, then there's a perception of a self. So you hold on to this belief that there exists self and other. And due to this dualistic grasping, you develop thoughts of attachment, aversion, and ignorance. And you cling to the true existence of appearances, the concrete existence. And as a result of such clinging, you experience suffering. As a human being, we mainly experience the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death. And then there is a lot of suffering in the other of the 6 realms of samsara. And we can see the suffering in this world, everywhere in this world. And so how did that happen? Why is there so much suffering? It's because of that self. It is because we believe in a self, the existence of a self, that does not actually exist. So the belief in it in itself is not what's so wrong, but it's because it doesn't exist. So if a self would actually exist, then nobody is saying you couldn't believe in it. Then it's fine to believe in it. But the thing is that it doesn't actually exist. So that is what we call the confusion of sentient beings. They perceive a self, a dualistic existence of self and other that actually doesn't exist. And the Buddha had realized that there is actually no self. So that realization is called the wisdom realizing selflessness. So the Buddha saw that actually self and other are inseparable. So we think that our mind, our consciousness is the self. And so during the empowerment, we are introduced to the fact that there is actually no self. So when you really look at your mind, where really is that self? Actually, you can't find it. There is no self anywhere. The mind is a nature that cannot be described in any way. So it can neither said to be existing, nor can it said to be non-existing. It transcends what we call the 4 extremes. This is how it is explained according to the logic of the Madhyamaka, the middle way. And then there's other methods too to realize the nature of mind, such as according to the practice lineage of blessings, the practices of Mahamudra and Dzogchen. And so when you realize the nature of the mind, that is what we call Buddhahood. And a Buddha means a mind that has become completely free of all fixation, of all grasping. And this mind that is free of all grasping is vast like space. It is also explained that within your own mind, all the qualities of the 3 kayas are complete. The Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya. So all of that is introduced to us by the empowerment. And then also through the empowerment, we purify the impure karmic tendencies of our body, speech, and mind. And that is through the 3 levels of empowerment. So the form empowerment purifies the body, and the speech empowerment purifies the speech, and the mind empowerment, the mind. So the briefest empowerment is divided into these 3 empowerments. And more elaborately, there is also empowerments that have 5 different levels to them, for example. But even though there can be many levels to empowerment, ultimately all empowerments are summarized in those 3, the body, speech, and the mind. And those 3 are further summarized into the mind empowerment. That's really the essence of any empowerment, to receive the mind empowerment. And during the mind empowerment, we melt this ice block of self-grasping. And so then also one more thing about receiving empowerment. So it is said that the life force of an empowerment is to keep the samaya. And that is also another reason why sometimes people say that you shouldn't receive too many empowerments, because if you receive an empowerment and you can't keep the samaya, it's no good. So you don't receive this empowerment. But then this person doesn't really understand what is samaya. What is samaya actually? Ultimately, samaya comes down to the mind empowerment, which is really the ultimate empowerment. And the mind empowerment is really the arising of bodhicitta in your mind. It is when bodhicitta arises that the selfish mind goes away. It is like the warmth that melts the ice block of self-grasping. So we can call it love and compassion, or the altruistic mind. And because it is the essence of every empowerment, there is no empowerment that doesn't begin with refuge and the motivation of bodhicitta, and also end with that, because the samaya is also bodhicitta. That's the samaya. So the samaya actually therefore is love and compassion, immeasurable love and compassion. When your mind is full of love, then your mind naturally is at ease. For example, if you are together with a friend that has great love for you, then you will naturally feel at ease and you will be happy. And that is, in these moments, our ice block, the ice of our mind is melting a little bit. It is melting due to the connection of love that we share with one another. And on the other hand, if a person that you don't get along with comes, you feel resentment, you feel angry. And then it is just like two ice blocks bumping into each other, and then there is conflict and fighting. And then many negative thoughts arise, anger and jealousy, the 6 afflictive emotions. And these create samsara. So we need to understand how it has happened that our mind became so frozen like an ice block. So this is how it happened. And so again, the life force of the empowerment is the samaya. And even if you receive 100 empowerments, they all have one single root samaya. And what is that? It is bodhicitta, or the twofold bodhicitta. And especially for us, the relative bodhicitta. And the relative bodhicitta really in essence is immeasurable love. And if you have that, then immeasurable compassion will naturally arise. So doing the empowerment of any deity, we cultivate bodhicitta. We are introduced to bodhicitta. So an empowerment really is a method, a skillful means for us to cultivate bodhicitta. And it is so through the refuge leads us into a bodhicitta. So that's the important point to understand. And the Buddha had seen that, and that is why the Buddha knew that taking refuge in the 3 jewels leads to cultivating bodhicitta, and therefore he said, first you should take refuge in the 3 jewels, and then you should practice the path of love and compassion. That is the Dharma. And then your guide on the path is the Sangha. Even though the Buddha is no longer alive, there is the Sangha who represents the 3 jewels. The Sangha's body is the Sangha, the speech is the Dharma, and the mind is the Buddha. So therefore, during every empowerment, we always start out with refuge, and then we cultivate bodhicitta. And that is also the samaya. And so since bodhicitta is the samaya, actually the argument that you shouldn't receive an empowerment if you can't keep the samaya actually doesn't hold. Because even if you don't receive an empowerment, if you lose your love for others, if you neglect love, if you further the afflictive emotions, then you will continue to wander in samsara, and whichever of the 6 afflictions is predominant will manifest, will ripen. So you can say for example, if you say that, so as long as I don't receive an empowerment, I'm free, I don't have any samaya, I have no commitment, so I can do whatever I want. I can get angry, I can get jealous as much as I want. But really ask yourself, is it really okay? Because, of course, if you are fine, if you're happy just to go to the 3 lower realms, then in that case it would be okay. But if you don't really want to go there, then you have to hold on to love and compassion. And then your mind will naturally, the ice block of your mind will melt and merge into one with the ocean water. So that is the reason why it is good to receive empowerment. It's because it's good for anyone, because all beings possess Buddha nature. And so now we also understand what is the meaning of the samaya. So the root samaya, the actual samaya, is love and compassion. And if you cultivate love and compassion, then self-grasping will diminish. And when immeasurable love and compassion arise, then you merge with the Buddha mind completely. And until that is accomplished, you will still not become liberated from suffering. So you need to continue to practice the path that the Buddha had laid out. The Buddha taught basically 3 levels of path, of the Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva, and the Vajrayana path. So again, it is good to receive empowerment, and the more you receive, the better it is. And also, what you can do is, after you have received an empowerment, is that you can also take a self-empowerment, which becomes kind of like a purifying and restoring ceremony. Because sometimes we lose our samaya, our love and our compassion diminishes. And so then we need to restore and purify. And in the sutra path of the Pratimoksha, there's a practice called the sojong, which means purifying and restoring. And the empowerment is just like the sojong of the tantric path. So therefore, if you cannot find a guru from whom to receive an empowerment, you can also just take a self-empowerment. And whenever you do that, any empowerment is a method to melt the ice block. It is like applying some warmth to this ice block, putting it out in the sun. So the more empowerments you receive, the more the ice block is melting. So that is the most important thing that we first need to understand when we receive an empowerment in terms of the samaya. So the samaya is love or loving kindness. And if you lose your love, it doesn't matter whether or not you have received an empowerment or samaya, so to speak. If you lose your love, you will go to the 3 lower realms. It becomes the cause of that. And if you receive an empowerment, and if your love declines for some time, of course it is a fault, because we shouldn't let it allow it to degenerate intentionally, knowingly. But also we can purify with this awareness, which is like the sojong. That's why we receive another empowerment, or we take a self-empowerment. And so if we continue to commit, we don't receive empowerment, we don't take any samaya, we think we can do what we want, then whatever of the afflictive emotions is predominant will naturally manifest. Jigten Sumgön had said that cause and effect is the moment-to-moment appearance, or the appearance of one's moment-to-moment thoughts. So that means that if your affliction is anger or hatred, then that will naturally manifest as hell. And if your affliction is greed or stinginess, then that will naturally manifest as the hungry spirit realm. And so in this way, each of the 6 afflictive emotions naturally manifests as a direct experience of the 6 realms of samsara. So, and therefore, now we understand that it is good to receive empowerment, and we also understand the samaya. What is the samaya of the empowerment? So it is love. And we understand that we can take self-empowerment also to restore. So those three are important to understand. If you understand them, you will be free of doubts. And that's why they are very important. And once you are free of doubts, you can receive any empowerment from any guru, from any lineage. The meaning of any empowerment is the same. So in brief, during an empowerment, we are restoring or purifying the mind. We are applying some heat to the ice block when we cultivate love, and the ice block is melting. So again, the sojong of the sutra path is the empowerment of the tantric path. They have the same meaning. So therefore, please, Dharma friends, I ask you to keep these words dear to your heart, close to your heart. So that is the brief commentary on the meaning of the empowerment.
Jamari Yang, the genius, and that's something. Do some just Sunday tongue, or some talk to the thing or shadowing Rassam, Rizati was harder to do. Do some just Sunday tongue to took your over at the Sharon Tata was a prepared that the last of Dorji, the Satam, took the salad Dorji, took Japar, getting the song, salad Dorji, took some Sunday tongue, got some talk to the they charged the salad Dorji, the Tati, the salad Dorji, the Dorji chum. The last was Dorji and Mendo, Dorji body. The means of Dorji channel, Mammy also simply down hours of a sender cove, send the Dorji, some corner decimated Dorji Lapiore. There was a tema, she was Dagini, Nga, Shinga, Satabra, Dunga, or daughter to Gorajana. They thought the social commotion cooking on it, Matola Sinchi, Dunga already. Those oh, the same crown, nature results. Water. 我家这咱们新可能这些没有动下好什么，你往托马特尼多大下过过来，这到了这到那个啥了都这个，这老就买老个人。
And then when we receive an empowerment, we need to also see the connection between the deity from whom we receive the empowerment and the master who confers and then oneself who receives the empowerment. So sentient beings possess the qualities of the three kayas within their mind. And that is what we are introduced to. And for a Buddha, these qualities are manifest. And so the qualities of the three kaya are the Dharmakaya is like space, and the Sambhogakaya is like a rainbow in the sky, and the Nirmanakaya is like rain falling down. And always, therefore, wherever we go, the three kayas pervade all of the five elements. In Milarepa's 100,000 songs, Milarepa said just before his passing that he will continue to pervade the five elements. So his nature is beyond death, actually. Just at the time when we are still sentient beings, those five elements are, so the five outer elements are connected to the five afflictive emotions. And so this is how it appears to us while we are sentient beings. There are the five elements and five afflictive emotions. So that is when we are immature, unripe. When the mind ripens, then the five afflictions actually become the five wisdoms. And a sign of that actually is we can often see a rainbow in the sky. A rainbow in the sky actually is the natural radiance, the light of the five wisdoms, or the form of the Sambhogakaya. And when we see a rainbow, therefore, we can actually see the natural light of the five wisdoms. And so this is how the five wisdoms pervade the five elements in five different colors. And so when we receive an empowerment, so there is a Vajramaster who confers the empowerment. And it's necessary to have such a Vajramaster because a Vajramaster is someone who understands the meaning of the empowerment. And the sentient being who receives the empowerment also possesses Buddha nature, like all beings possess Buddha nature. It is just that temporarily their aggregates, the sense sources, their elements are impure. So they are in an unripe state, just like the seed of a flower. So they need to be introduced by someone who understands how things really are. And that is the Vajramaster. The Vajramaster introduces them because the Vajramaster himself has seen how things really are. And so how things really are is that there is no self. This is what the Vajramaster has realized. And this is what sentient beings have not realized. So they think that there's this me, I am here, I'm a sentient being. And so basically what we call a sentient being is someone who doesn't understand how things really are. And so therefore in an empowerment we are introduced to that. And so then once you're introduced to that, you realize that actually I can become a perfect Buddha. It is just like when wood meets with fire, then the wood itself also becomes fire. It turns into fire, it's burned. And so similarly, if we meet with the meaning during the empowerment, if we understand the meaning, we realize that we can actually become complete, perfect Buddhas. Because we are introduced during the empowerment that the qualities are inherent within us. So we have said the Dharmakaya is the space-like, empty and all-pervasive nature of the mind. And then the Sambhogakaya it's like a rainbow in the sky, and are the various deities and the pure lands that manifest everywhere. So the Yidam deity is what we call the Sambhogakaya. And Nirmanakaya, actually, it is said that all 6 realms of samsara are actually Nirmanakayas. So we are actually all Nirmanakayas. The Dharmakaya and the Sambhogakaya are the pure aspects. And for the Nirmanakaya, there are pure and impure Nirmanakayas, or aspects to it, which is basically just like ice and water coexisting in this world. So that's the Nirmanakaya. We call others Nirmanakaya or a Druku, but what the actual meaning of that is that it is because all beings possess Buddha nature. Everybody possesses the cause of awakening, the potential, and therefore, for this reason, everyone really is a Nirmanakaya or a Druku. It is just temporarily that we are controlled by our karmic imprints, those habitual patterns, which keep us in a confused state. So we perceive things in a distorted way. The mind has become like an ice block. But if the sun touches it, it can melt. And that is the commentary that we receive from the Vajramaster. It's like the sun touching our ice block. And then when the disciple understands the meaning of the instructions and engages in practice, then they themselves can mature their body, speech, and mind into the enlightened body, speech, and mind of the deity, which is just like an ice block merging indivisibly with the ocean water. So once you have received one empowerment, then you can also take self-empowerment. And that also is a skillful, so therefore an empowerment also is a skillful means that kind of helps you to take a self-empowerment. Again, in the empowerment, we are introduced to the all-pervasive nature of the Dharmakaya and also Sambhogakaya, and that all beings are actually Nirmanakayas because, as Gampopa also had said, all Buddha nature pervades all sentient beings. So when you receive these instructions, you recognize that I possess Buddha nature. If I cultivate bodhicitta, I can become awakened, I can become enlightened. And so that which ripens you, therefore, that which matures you is bodhicitta. If you keep cultivating it over and over again continuously, you keep cultivating the 4 immeasurables, bodhicitta, and with that mind you cultivate, you habituate to the deity, visualization, and the mantra recitation, your body, speech, and mind will become completely pure. And through the visualization of the deity or the form empowerment, you purify the karmic imprints of the body. And then through the speech empowerment, you purify the karmic imprints of speech. And through the mind empowerment, you purify the karmic imprints of the mind. And that is what's actually most important. And that's why the empowerment begins with that, with bodhicitta, with the 4 immeasurables. Because if the 4 immeasurables arise within you, you will actually realize the ultimate truth naturally. And so that is the ultimate nature, the ultimate essence of the 3 empowerments is included therefore within that, within bodhicitta. And so today we are receiving the Vajrapani empowerment. So there's sometimes those three deities that come together. It is Vajrapani, Manjushri, and Chenrezig. And Vajrapani is said to be the embodiment of all the Buddhas of the 3 times enlightened mind. So he's the essence of all the Buddha's enlightened mind. And actually all the Vajra deities are related to the enlightened mind. For example, Vajrakilaya is also a manifestation of the Buddha's enlightened mind, or then there is Manjushri, would be the body. So the Vajra kind of deities, especially Vajrapani, are the mind. Manjushri is body, and Chenrezig is speech. So these who represent the enlightened body, speech, and mind of all the Buddhas after 3 times. So all the Vajra deities are a representation of the enlightened mind. So, for example, Vajrapani, or also Vajradhara, and so on. And the meaning that we're introduced to is great, because Vajra is really the true nature of the mind. We speak about the mind Vajra, the Vajra of the mind. The mind Vajra is the mind that transcends birth and death. So it's the everlasting natural state. That's the Vajra mind. And so that is what we must realize. And so not realizing that, not realizing our Vajra mind nature, we perceive duality of self and other. We think it's me and him and so on. And due to this grasping at me as this I, we continue to suffer and wander in the 6 realms of samsara. So therefore, all those beings who have not recognized their Vajra mind nature are sentient beings who suffer. And when you realize your Vajra mind nature, then you see that my own mind actually is beyond birth and death. And therefore, even though I have wandered in samsara endlessly, the mind is still the same. The mind has never been born, and it has never died. So if you understand the meaning of this, you have understood the meaning of all the empowerments. And so next I will read the historical background of the Vajrapani empowerment.
Gopa sadar nyungder nisanama yenze ran di satalna shakyataba nangtalna saradoji satalna doji changchibo ye tisumje saje tamjeje samen zozaba yenze chindule gobo zoksangje je sangzi jene lajer genji songbata 강라 강들제 상하제 slatam지 다당 동데 로직제 거여저바 콜로딘조 소고저바 마하야나 톡저저바 지바돌지 용티저저바 상한지반 천례제 저바 뒤제콜로 탐제 다당오 저바 연데 유리 마의 거는 통화나 리키남의 상제니 마의 송도 주바나 코바네자 데버톱 마의 톡도 똑바나 심진 탐제 상제니 심진 탐제 상제니 기성과 사나돌지 내에 왕고로 톱정 이담세나 라신 제제 강기장 석바 연세 사도지 줄에 달아다도 손절나 데비르다 대통미 이송배 타톡 상제제 톡 도지 당 예름 시반데네 사지 도지에서 또 도탄디니 속공지 인심제 도진제 봐 네 라마지바니 잡다 도진 장 도진 나좀마
The Guru's lineage.
아빠 가라쿠타 Rina Lakita, Rina Lakita, Shabara Kara, Kota, Setter, Kota, Shinta, Shirabada, Chang Rota, Doji Jamsi, Rota, Chodi Banglo, Tema Sadam Matapichi, Sadang Babang, Babagan, Laman, Chodi, Romu Lama, Jason Mara, Chidi Talk, Javan, Hibaso, Namir, Wang, Jipara, Jitimida, Rena Sempa, some Sintari, the Chidi Talk, control, control, Teresa Buja, Tongun, Japa, control, Tintin, Tintin, that is the Lottie just get on say a chapter and calling on board. They payment jumping, Dr. She jumping to see the Chuang, to the Mangarchi, Tempe jumping, Chija Lord, Jambu, she will load, got in Chile, chapter top to me, Doji, which are talking about Lamajiba, the inches or logo money. Logo money, Lamajiba couldn't see it in the way. In I want to study what you're talking about, I'm seeing with the Ago, the Tabdi, what you're talking within the Shibare, drinks one one's married.
So here's the history for the Vajrapani Empowerment. Outwardly, and this deity is Shakyamuni. Inwardly, he is Vajrapani, and intermediately, he is Great Vajradhara. He is the treasurer of the secrets of all the Buddhas of the 3 times. It is said in the Manjushri Namasangiti, I am unquestionably the holder of the secrets of all the protectors, the perfect Buddhas. All the deities of the secret mantra who tame beings according to their needs have this same meaning and essence. The body emanation is Chakrasamvara, the speech emanation is Mahamaya, the mind emanation is Hevajra, the quality emanation is Guya Samaja, and the activity emanation is Kala Chakra. They all have the same essence. It is said in a Tantra, when you see my body, all beings are in the nature Buddhas. When you hear my voice, you obtain happiness even if you are in samsara. When you realize my mind, all sentient beings are in nature Buddhas. If you obtain this empowerment of Vajrapani and make him your Yidam deity, no one among the 8 classes of gods and demons can harm you. It is said in the Vajrapani Tantra, if you always persevere in this practice, there is no doubt that the 8 classes of gods and demons will be like your servants. And ultimately, it will make you indivisible from the Vajra mind of all the Buddhas. It belongs to the Kriya Tantras and the Vajra family. The sadhana is composed by Acharya Achikten Somgidwajem. And so then after that, Rinpoche read the name of the lineage masters, and so it was enough for you just to have heard their names once. And Rinpoche himself had received this empowerment from Gonchok Tupten Nyingbo, who was Lojin Rinpoche's, Lamchen Rinpoche's uncle, Lamchen Gyabo Rinpoche's uncle.
Dosa dosa maya, mane palaya, bedasa toseno, the doctor me bawa, so the cow me bawa, so bochao me ba, Anaracto me bawa, so what's it me ba, yes, Sawa Kalma Sadame, the Tamsiam Guru, ha ha ho, Bagai, Sawa Tatangata Beda Mami, Mentam Bedaba, Ma Samaya Sato, Kekati Samai Chile, ho. Ambe near the home by almost get the Masova, Tomagano, almost were watching a judgment. Oh, I hope you are somewhere, Tomaka, Thomas, the Vachi. Jenny Bonacon about Joe Magar, Magasawadaman, I didn't even know my own bedo. Umagar, Magasawadaman, I didn't even know my own bedo, Magar. I didn't even know my home by so one, no matter what the hour. Sambara Hong Namasa, Tagada, Avaloka, the Sambara Hong Namasa. The Sagada, Avaloka, the Sambara Hong, the Hijama, Himala, Sotara, Hijama, Sotara, Sotara, Hijama, the Yishiwa, Tamjid, Lala Santa, the Majo. Some Bachadis or others, Lambana, Joseph Basolina, Zova Janola, the Jinjo, one Chupan, the Gudula, never so much of water, 60 London people. One of the Tambaran, Sina, Density, Gigi, the Chico, the Garchen, and that one, Tamba, you walk on like a papa. Yellow get don't take it from the outside, you can't be so solo when you're there. I'm going to appear when you live. Mauze, John, Chimbo, Chung, and that very young one is in it. Don't you rub the letter, the farm, and the great town, someone, the home, Dana, and the home of my bear, and Rang Koliwa to the Savatokara, just only more than Bajasava, just sort of the charge of Mavarasaway. Then told you, do you got that day another love the water, what of the dodgy side of Roger Sota, the dodgy Tawati water, the Tagapan, the dodgy diet of sort of dodgy Ravates or he me home. But some about the budget of Martin was on a judge of her. Mendene beda bawa beda traga pizza and betana shara dollar some on beta dollar analaga hong three one to the three come and upper one three kind cover dandy three dandy in costume the three Raji Sanam Tamjetri. That's only the Meda Bogore, Meda.
Next we will offer a mandala. And so the reason why we offer a mandala, how we offer mandala during an empowerment, is that so the root of samsara is self-grasping. It's because of self-grasping that samsara arises. So now we bring to mind all of that self-grasping of self and other, and also along with the entire outer universe. And then we offer it up to the Buddhas. And so next we will recite the mandala offering. So when you offer a mandala, you think that you're offering limitless universes up to all the Buddha's pervading space. And we're going to recite the mandala offering that comes from the Guru Yoga practice of Milarepa. The words of this particular mandala offering are very profound. So in the yellow prayer book, that's on page 7. An infinite array of worlds, each with 4 continents and the wealth of infinite oceans of realms. If I bring them all to mind and offer them without exception, please hold with compassion all the beings they contain. My body, enjoyments, and whatever I own, my aggregates, elements, and sense sources, my aspirations now and in times to come, as well as everything I grasp as mine. By offering them all, may I be blessed with the end of self-grasping. Completely liberated from the bounds of real and unreal, transcending the names and concepts of arising, cessation, and abiding, coming and going, affirmation and denial. The supreme mandala is the natural state. By offering it, may I be blessed to attain the state of Buddhahood. Om Guru Deva Dakini Ratna Mandala Prateja Soha.
다 왕 라마나 베커베 카피나 다들이 나나 왕 니베 카스이나 다 이리라 계속적으로 되는 나가라 조금 남카가 롱이더니 롱그 자소여더니 랑 왕시사가 강이나 뒤소임 베더니 속에 뒤선 사제던지 그 적들더니 패병사 들이 마시와 지가 뭐 동네 그 깨자오면들이 마시랑 인경과 배치다 그래서 저 산제 탐지 신진 탐지라 마치 뭐 받다고 지야요리 소 따바다들 소 마담나 투기 적기도 소 마담나 삭발더니 무슨 패크요리 니시지고래지.
So whether you are receiving empowerment from Guru or you are taking a self-empowerment, you should think that the principal deity appears out of the Dharmakaya space expanse instantly as the rainbow-like Sambhogakaya. So at the center is the deity, the main deity from whom you receive the empowerment, and think that that deity is surrounded by all the Buddhas of the 10 directions and 3 times, who all appear in an instant. They appear just like a mother appears when she hears the cries of her suffering child. So the mother will just naturally come. And the Buddhas love all sentient beings just like a mother loves her child. And that is whether or not we supplicate them. Even if we don't supplicate them, the Buddhas still look upon us with great compassion. But now when we supplicate them, you should think and be completely certain that they are actually there. They actually appear before you.
꿈치 이시 봉보지 시바 폴로 남종화 대령 피베 린치제 또우 나라 가든소.
In English, embodiment of omniscient wisdom, who utterly purifies the wheel of existence through your kindness, please grant me the principal deity of the precious treasury you are setting forth today.
람마당 된지제 라소는 저 정도 접선 로시 득바 샤바다 기와라 기세여랑 단 산축도 심 기바단 기버서 저저 저와 저부 산축도 홍화지 지난 게 문조 정상 안남다 지버레드 내지도.
And then next up, please repeat the 5 pure branches, which is to take refuge and to cultivate bodhicitta, to confess all misdeeds and obscurations, and is to rejoice, and then finally to dedicate the roots of virtue from these practices toward the complete awakening, enlightenment of all sentient beings. So please repeat the following supplication.
원쇼 somla da jamji dekba mege so sha rowe gela ji yi rang 상제 장첩 이지종 상제 주당 솜초라 장첩 바르스 나잠치 랑지 동니 랍럽설 장첩 샘네 지바르지 장첩 조크 샘네 지지네 샘진 탐제 다기 롱더니르 장첩 줌초 이옹 제발지 로라 빈설 상제
I take refuge in the three jewels. I confess all misdeeds and non-virtues. I rejoice in the virtue of all beings, and I hold the awakening of the Buddha in mind. Until attaining awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly in order to fully accomplish the purpose of others and myself. I give rise to bodhicitta. Having given rise to the mind of supreme awakening, I welcome all beings. I will engage in the supreme bodhisattva conduct that is pleasing to all. May I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. So, so Dharma friends, please take a break for 20 minutes. So during the break, keep thinking about bodhicitta and think, I want to benefit sentient beings. And if you have bodhicitta, actually think that even if I go to pee now, I will benefit sentient beings by peeing.
Thank you.